Imagine a city built next to a massive freshwater lake, a body of water so vast that its reserves could sustain millions for centuries without ever running dry. The lake has infinite water, crystal clear and pure, perpetually replenished by underground springs that never cease their ancient work. But the city is dying of thirst. Children cry for water, businesses close their doors, gardens wither into dust. The citizens look at the lake with longing, knowing it is there, seeing its shimmering surface in the distance, yet they cannot access a single drop. Why? Because the main valve, the great iron wheel that controls the flow from lake to city, is rusted shut, corroded by years of neglect, sealed by the accumulated debris of forgotten maintenance. The problem is not the supply. The lake remains full, generous, waiting. The problem is the delivery. Robert Collier, one of the most penetrating minds of the 20th century, teaches that you are that city. The universe in all its infinite abundance is the lake, and your mind, that magnificent, mysterious instrument you carry between your ears, is the valve. Robert Collier, a master of both metaphysics and the practical science of human achievement, a man who understood the invisible mechanics of prosperity as clearly as an engineer understands hydraulics, taught that scarcity is an optical illusion, a mirage in the desert of limited thinking. There is no shortage of money in this world. The printing presses run, the digital numbers multiply, wealth flows like rivers through the channels of commerce. There is no shortage of health. The life force that animates every cell in your body is connected to an inexhaustible source of vitality. There is no shortage of opportunity. Every moment births 1,000 possibilities, each one waiting for a mind prepared to recognize it. What then is the shortage? There is only a shortage of open valves. Most men have clamped their own pipes shut with the iron grip of fear and welded them closed with the hot torch of doubt. They stand in the rain complaining of drought. They sit beside the banquet table starving, convinced that the feast is for others. They have closed themselves off from the very supply that seeks to flow through them, and then they wonder why their lives feel like deserts, why their bank accounts remain barren, why their dreams stay perpetually out of reach. In this video, we will not merely discuss theories or entertain philosophical speculation. We will find the handle of the universal valve, that precise point of contact where your will meets the mechanism of infinite supply. We will learn Robert Collier's technique, not as abstract wisdom to be admired from a distance, but as a practical method to be applied immediately, to crank that valve open, to turn that wheel with deliberate force, and to release the torrential flow of infinite supply into your life. This is not about receiving a trickle or a modest stream. This is about opening the floodgates. Collier teaches that the universe does not measure its giving by teaspoons. When the valve opens, when the channel clears, when the blockage dissolves, what comes through is a deluge, a cascade, a river that transforms everything it touches. Are you ready to turn that wheel? Are you prepared to step into a flow so powerful that your current conception of possibility will seem laughably small? Then stay with me, because what you are about to learn will change not just what you have, but who you understand yourself to be in relation to the infinite reservoir of all that is. Collier begins his revelation with an image so simple that most minds skip over it without grasping its revolutionary implications. Your mind is not separate from the universal mind. It is an inlet of it, a direct extension, a living connection to the infinite intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and guides the growth of every seed. Consider a bay connected to the ocean. Not a separate body of water, but a formation of the same water, an indentation in the coastline where the ocean reaches inland, exploring the contours of the land. The bay is ocean. It participates in the tides of the ocean. When the moon pulls the water, the bay responds with the same force that moves the entire sea. This is your relationship to the universal mind, Collier insists, and understanding this truth is the first turn of the valve. You are not an isolated drop hoping to get lucky and find moisture. You are a bay, a natural channel through which the ocean of infinite intelligence, infinite supply, and infinite possibility flows. If the channel is open, if the connection between bay and ocean remains clear and unobstructed, then the tide of the ocean fills the bay with effortless regularity. The bay does not work to attract the water. The bay does not worry whether the ocean will remember to flow. The bay simply remains open, and the natural hydraulics of the system do the rest. High tide comes and the bay fills. The rhythm is automatic, governed by laws as reliable as mathematics. But if the channel becomes blocked, if sediment accumulates, if debris piles up, if human hands build a dam or nature allows vegetation to clog the passage, then something terrible happens. The bay becomes cut off from its source. What was once fresh, vital, connected, becomes a stagnant swamp. The water that remains grows brackish and unhealthy. The ecosystem deteriorates. The bay forgets that it was ever part of something greater, ever connected to something infinite. This is the condition of most human minds, Collier observes, with the clear sight of a diagnostician. The channel has been allowed to fill with the debris of negative thinking, the sediment of fear, the choking weeds of doubt and worry. The mind has become a stagnant swamp, cut off from its source, wondering why life feels so limited, so constrained, so devoid of the freshness and vitality that others seem to experience. Yet the ocean remains just beyond the blockage, pressing against the debris, waiting for the channel to clear. The universal mind has not withdrawn its supply. The infinite has not decided to exclude you from its abundance. The tide still rises and falls with perfect regularity. The problem is entirely on your end of the equation, entirely within the channel that you control, entirely within the valve mechanism of your own consciousness. Understanding this truth, truly absorbing it until it becomes the foundation of your daily awareness, is the beginning of transformation. You are not trying to attract something from far away. You are not attempting to convince a reluctant universe to notice you. You are simply clearing the channel that already connects you to infinite supply. You are removing the obstacles that you yourself, often unconsciously, have placed in the path of the flow. Every time you think a thought of lack, you drop another stone in the channel. Every time you speak words of limitation, you pile more sediment in the passage. Every time you feel the emotion of scarcity, you allow more debris to accumulate. And conversely, every time you think with abundance consciousness, you remove an obstruction. Every time you speak words of plenty, you clear away debris. Every time you feel the emotion of confidence and expectation, you widen the channel. The bay does not need to understand the chemistry of ocean water to receive it. The bay does not need a degree in marine biology to participate in the tides. The bay simply needs to remain open, and nature does the rest. Similarly, you do not need to understand every mystery of the universal mind to benefit from its supply. You do not need to master metaphysics or become a spiritual adept to open the valve. You simply need to maintain the channel, to keep the connection clear, to ensure that the inlet remains unobstructed. This is not complicated spiritual work requiring years of ascetic practice. This is simple mental hygiene, the daily maintenance of consciousness, the deliberate choice to think in ways that open rather than close, that allow rather than resist, that receive rather than block. Collier emphasizes that the universal mind is not capricious or selective. It does not play favorites. It does not reward some and punish others. It simply flows where it can flow, like water finding its level, like electricity following the path of least resistance. If your mind is configured to receive, if your consciousness is structured as an open channel rather than a closed system, then the flow is automatic, inevitable, as reliable as gravity. But if your mind is configured to resist, if your consciousness is structured as a dam, a barrier, a blockage, then no amount of wishing or hoping or praying will override the simple hydraulics of the situation. The supply cannot flow where the valve is closed. The ocean cannot fill a bay that has sealed itself off. This is not punishment. This is simply the way the system works, the natural law that governs the relationship between the individual mind and the universal mind. Most people approach the problem backwards, Collier notes. They believe they must first see the evidence of supply before they can open themselves to receive it. They wait to see money in the bank before they can think thoughts of prosperity. They wait to see health in their bodies before they can feel the energy of vitality. They wait to see opportunity knocking before they can adopt the attitude of expectation. But this is like a bay demanding that the ocean prove its existence before the bay will clear its channel. The sequence is reversed, and therefore the flow never begins. The opening must precede the flow, not follow it. You must clear the channel first, trusting that the ocean is there, knowing that the tide will come when the passage is ready to receive it. This requires a kind of faith that most minds find difficult, a willingness to act on principle before seeing proof, to turn the valve before seeing the water, to believe in the infinite supply while still experiencing temporary lack. Yet this is precisely what Collier teaches, and this is precisely what the masters before him taught, and this is precisely what every person who has ever moved from limitation to abundance has discovered. The consciousness of plenty must come first. The mental state of abundance must precede the material state of abundance. The feeling of the open channel must be cultivated before the flow becomes visible. This seems counterintuitive to the rational mind, which insists on evidence before belief, on proof before faith, on seeing before trusting. But the rational mind, for all its utility in navigating the physical world, does not understand the laws of the inner world, the principles that govern the relationship between consciousness and manifestation, between thought and thing. The rational mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. And in matters of supply, in questions of abundance, in the great work of opening the valve to infinite possibility, the rational mind must step aside and allow a deeper wisdom to guide the process. The bay knows nothing of the moon that pulls the tides, yet the bay responds to every lunar cycle with perfect precision. The bay does not need to see the moon to feel its influence, to participate in its rhythms, to receive the benefits of its gravitational pull. Similarly, you do not need to see the universal mind to feel its presence, to participate in its abundance, to receive the benefits of its infinite supply. You need only maintain the openness, keep the channel clear, trust the connection even when immediate evidence is not visible to your physical eyes. This is the first great secret of the valve. It opens from the inside by decision, by choice, by the deliberate cultivation of a consciousness that knows itself to be connected to something infinite, something inexhaustible, something that wants to flow through you with all the power of the ocean, seeking its natural level. The metaphor is precise, Collier insists, not merely poetic. Your mind truly is a channel for universal mind. The laws that govern this relationship are as real as the laws of physics, as dependable as mathematics, as testable as any scientific principle. Countless individuals have proven these laws by applying them, by clearing their channels, by opening their valves, by transforming their experience from scarcity to abundance through nothing more than a shift in consciousness. These are not lucky people or specially favored souls. These are people who understood the mechanism and worked it correctly. They cleared the debris, they opened the valve, they maintained the channel, and the tide came rushing in, as it always does when the conditions are right, when the passage is clear, when the inlet is ready to receive the infinite ocean that has always been pressing against the barrier, waiting for the moment of opening. Consider how this changes everything. If you believed yourself to be a separate, isolated entity, struggling to survive in a hostile universe of limited resources, then life becomes a constant battle, a fearful scramble, a desperate competition for insufficient supply. But if you understand yourself to be an inlet of the infinite, a channel for the universal mind, a bay connected to an inexhaustible ocean, then life becomes a matter of maintenance rather than conquest, of allowing rather than forcing, of receiving rather than taking. The anxiety dissolves because you know the tide is coming. The fear evaporates because you understand that the supply is infinite and you are connected to it. The sense of lack transforms into a sense of plenty, not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because your understanding of your relationship to supply has fundamentally shifted. You are no longer a desert hoping for rain. You are a bay waiting for high tide, and high tide always comes. This is what Collier means when he says your mind is an inlet of the universal mind. This is not abstract philosophy or wishful thinking. This is the foundational truth upon which all his teaching rests, the premise from which all his techniques derive, the reality that makes the valve analogy not just clever, but literally accurate. You are connected. The supply is infinite. The channel exists. Your only work is to keep it open, to maintain it clear, to ensure that the flow is not obstructed by the accumulated debris of negative consciousness. Do this, and the rest takes care of itself. The tide does not need your help to rise. It needs only your permission to enter. The ocean does not need your effort to flow. It needs only your willingness to receive. Open the valve, clear the channel, and prepare for the flood. Once you grasp that you are connected to infinite supply through the channel of your own mind, Collier reveals the second truth that transforms how you approach the valve. You don't need to beg for the water. You don't need to plead with the universe, cajole the cosmos, or convince some distant deity that you are worthy of abundance. The water wants to flow. More than that, it must flow because that is its nature, its purpose, its inherent drive. Gravity wants to pull it into your life with the same inexorable force that pulls apples from trees and rain from clouds. The universal mind wants to express abundance through you, not as a special favor or a reward for good behavior, but as a natural function of its own character, its own fundamental nature, which is infinite expression, unlimited creativity, boundless generosity. Your only job, your entire job, your complete responsibility, is to remove the blockage. This changes everything about how you relate to the concept of supply, everything about how you approach the valve. The supply is aggressive, Collier teaches in a phrase that startles most readers. We are accustomed to thinking of ourselves as the active party, pursuing abundance, chasing opportunities, hunting for resources. We imagine ourselves as seekers and the supply as something distant, passive, indifferent, requiring our effort to reach it. But Collier reverses this image with the precision of a master teacher who understands that wrong thinking produces wrong results. The supply is aggressive. It pushes against the door, waiting for you to unlock it. It presses against the valve, waiting for you to turn the wheel. It builds up pressure on the other side of your consciousness, creating a potential energy that will rush forward with tremendous force the moment the obstruction is removed. You are not chasing supply. Supply is pursuing you, seeking an outlet, looking for a channel through which to express itself, waiting with far more impatience than you feel for the moment when you finally open the valve. Think of water behind a dam, accumulating pressure with every passing hour, every rising inch of depth adding to the force that presses against the barrier. The water does not passively sit there, hoping someone might eventually release it. The water actively pushes, constantly tests the structure, seeks every crack, every weakness, every possible point of breakthrough. This is the nature of water under pressure, and this is the nature of universal supply in relation to your life. There is a pressure differential between the infinite abundance that is the natural state of the universal mind and the limited manifestation that currently exists in your experience. This pressure differential creates a natural force, a hydraulic push, a gravitational pull that wants to equalize the levels, wants to bring your experience into alignment with the infinite supply that is your birthright, your natural inheritance, your true state. Most people never realize this, Collier observes, and therefore they exhaust themselves in futile effort. They push when they should allow. They strain when they should release. They work frantically to attract something that is already pressing against their consciousness, waiting only for permission to enter. It is like someone on one side of a door, pushing with all their might to force it open, not realizing that the door opens toward them, and they need only step back and pull. The effort is misdirected, the force is misapplied, and the result is frustration, exhaustion, and the reinforcement of the very belief in scarcity that keeps the valve closed. You cannot force the valve open by pushing from the wrong side. You cannot attract supply through desperate striving. You can only receive it through intelligent allowing, through understanding the mechanics of the system and working with them rather than against them. The key insight here is that the universe operates on principles of fullness, not emptiness. The natural state of the universal mind is abundance, creativity, expression, flow. Limitation is not the norm, it is the aberration. Scarcity is not the foundation, it is the distortion. Lack is not the truth, it is the illusion created by blockage. When you understand this, when you truly internalize this reversal of the common worldview, then your entire approach to supply changes. You stop approaching life as a beggar approaching a miser, hoping to extract a few coins through clever negotiation or pitiful pleading. You start approaching life as an engineer approaches a reservoir, knowing that the water is there, knowing that the pressure is building, knowing that your job is simply to install the right pipeline, turn the right valve, open the right channel, and step back as the natural force of the system does its work. Collier insists that this is not merely a more optimistic way of thinking. This is an accurate description of how the system actually works. The masters who have gone before, the individuals who have moved from lack to abundance, the teachers who have tested these principles in the laboratory of their own lives, all report the same discovery. Supply is not reluctant. Supply is eager. Supply is pressing. Supply is waiting. The moment the blockage is removed, the moment the valve is opened, the moment the channel is cleared, supply rushes in with a force that often surprises even those who intellectually understood the principle. It is one thing to believe that abundance is available. It is quite another to experience the actual flood when you finally, truly open the valve, when you finally, truly remove the obstacles that you yourself placed in the path of the flow. This understanding should fill you with a kind of excitement, a sense of possibility that is fundamentally different from hope or wishful thinking. This is not, maybe if I'm lucky. This is not, perhaps if I try hard enough. This is, the pressure is already there, I need only open the valve. Do you feel the difference? Hope is passive, waiting for something external to change. This understanding is active, recognizing that you hold the mechanism, you control the valve, you determine the flow by the state of your own consciousness. The supply is not in question. The availability is not in doubt. The only variable is the position of the valve, open or closed, allowing or blocking, receiving or resisting. And that position is determined entirely by the content of your thoughts, the quality of your emotions, the nature of your beliefs about yourself, and your relationship to the infinite supply that surrounds you, permeates you, and seeks to express through you. When you approach the valve with this understanding, everything changes. You don't beg, you don't plead, you don't hope for mercy or charity. You simply turn the wheel with confidence, knowing that the water is already there, the pressure is already built, the supply is already pressing against the mechanism. Your action is not supplication, it is operation. You are not asking for something to be given to you. You are opening a channel for something that wants to flow through you. The distinction is crucial. One approach leaves you feeling powerless, dependent, uncertain. The other approach puts you in the position of authority, of control, of responsibility. You are the valve operator. You are the channel maintainer. You are the one who determines whether the flow begins today or continues to be blocked by the accumulated debris of limitation thinking. Collier drives this point home with relentless clarity because he knows that most people carry an unconscious belief that the universe is fundamentally stingy, that supply is limited, that getting your share means someone else loses theirs. This scarcity consciousness is the great blockage, the primary obstruction, the main reason the valve stays closed even when people consciously desire abundance. Beneath the conscious desire lurks the unconscious belief. There isn't enough. I don't deserve it. It won't work for me. Others are luckier, more talented, more favored. These beliefs are the rust on the valve, the sediment in the channel, the dam across the inlet, and they are all based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of supply and your relationship to it. The truth, as Collier teaches it, is that the universal mind is not a finite reservoir that diminishes with use. It is an infinite source that increases with expression. Every channel it flows through enlarges its capacity to flow. Every valve that opens creates more pressure for other valves to open. Every individual who moves into abundance consciousness makes it easier for others to do the same. This is not competition. This is cooperation. This is not a zero-sum game. This is an infinite game where everyone's winning increases everyone else's chances of winning. The supply wants to flow through as many channels as possible, wants to express through as many individuals as will allow it, wants to create a world where the floodgates are open everywhere and abundance is the normal, natural, expected experience of every person who understands the mechanism and operates the valve correctly. So step up to the valve, Collier urges. Stop approaching it as a beggar approaches a locked door, hoping someone inside might hear your knocking. Approach it as an operator approaches a mechanism that exists for your use, that was designed for your benefit, that waits only for your hand on the wheel. The supply is aggressive. The pressure is building. The water is pushing. Your job is not to create the supply. Your job is to allow it, to receive it, to channel it, to become the open valve through which infinite abundance flows into the world of form, into your life, into your experience. Turn the wheel. Feel the pressure release. Prepare for the flood. The right of way is yours not because you earned it or deserve it in some moral sense, but because you are, by nature, an inlet of the infinite, a channel for the universal mind, a valve through which supply naturally flows when the mechanism is properly operated. This is your function. This is your purpose. This is your right. Now claim it. Wallace Wattles told us the substance is everywhere, pervading all space, filling every gap, present in every moment, the raw material from which all things are made. He showed us the universe as a sea of formless substance, intelligent and responsive, waiting to take shape according to the thoughts impressed upon it. Wattles is the visionary who revealed the ocean itself, who taught us to recognize that we swim in abundance, that the very air we breathe is thick with potential, that lack is impossible in a universe made of infinite formless substance. But Wattles was an architect of consciousness, a designer of mental structures, a teacher who showed us what to build and where to build it. Collier is something different. Collier is the plumber. And this distinction is not trivial. It is essential to understanding why you need both teachers, why Wattles alone is incomplete, why the most beautiful design in the world cannot be lived in if the pipes don't work. You can design a beautiful life using Wattles' principles. You can draw up the blueprints, specify the dimensions, imagine every room and every detail. You can impress your vision on the formless substance with clarity and precision. You can hold the image with faith and purpose. You can do everything Wattles instructs, and you will have created something magnificent in the invisible realm, in the world of thought, in the blueprint stage. But if the pipes don't work, if the valve is closed, if the supply line is blocked, you can't live in the house. You can't inhabit the vision. You can't experience the abundance that exists in potential but hasn't yet flowed into manifestation. This is where most students of the science of getting rich get stuck, Collier observes. They master the architecture but never learn the plumbing, and they wonder why their beautiful designs never become livable realities. The connection between these two teachers is strategic, not merely historical. Wattles teaches you to work with formless substance through thought. Collier teaches you to work with universal mind through consciousness. Wattles shows you what to think. Collier shows you how to be. Wattles gives you the creative process. Collier gives you the receiving mechanism. And both are necessary, absolutely necessary, if you want to move from vision to manifestation, from blueprint to building, from design to dwelling. You cannot have one without the other and expect complete results. You need the architect to show you what is possible, what to create, what to aim for. And you need the plumber to show you how to hook up the supply, how to maintain the flow, how to keep the channels clear so that what you create in thought can receive the substance it needs to become form. Think about this practically. Suppose you follow Wattles perfectly. You have a clear mental image of the wealth you desire. You hold it with faith. You act in the certain way. You impress your thought on formless substance. All of this is necessary and correct. But if your consciousness is still pervaded by a sense of lack, if your emotional state is one of fear and scarcity, if your habitual thoughts between those moments of directed visualization are thoughts of limitation and doubt, then the valve is closed. The formless substance may be responding to your creative thought, organizing itself to manifest your vision, but it cannot flow into your experience because the channel is blocked. The supply exists, the design is sound, but the connection is broken. This is the frustration of thousands who study Wattles but don't study Collier, who learn to impress thought but never learn to open flow. Collier's contribution is the missing piece that makes Wattles' system practically functional. Where Wattles focuses on the creative side, what you think about, how you form your images, the quality of your mental pictures. Collier focuses on the receptive side, what you feel about supply, how you relate to abundance, the quality of your consciousness regarding your right to receive. Both are thinking teachers, but they're addressing different aspects of the same process. Wattles is upstream, at the source, teaching you to send your order into the creative medium. Collier is downstream at the outlet, teaching you to keep the channel open so the order can flow back to you. Miss either side of this equation, and the system breaks down. Master both, and you have a complete method that works with the precision of well-designed machinery. This is why Collier's valve metaphor is so powerful when placed alongside Wattles' formless substance. The substance is the water, infinite, formless, ready to take any shape. Your thought is the mold that gives it shape, the design that determines what form it takes. But between the source and the manifestation, between the infinite ocean and your physical experience, there must be a clear channel, an open valve, a maintained pipeline. No matter how perfect your design, no matter how clear your thought, no matter how powerful your faith, if the valve is closed, nothing flows. And conversely, an open valve without a clear design is chaos. Supply flowing everywhere without direction, abundance without form, potential without purpose. You need both, the architect and the plumber, the designer and the engineer, Wattles and Collier. Consider how the masters build upon each other, how each contributes a piece of the complete system. Wattles gives you the substance and the process. Florence Scovel Shinn gives you the laws of return, the principle of the boomerang, the understanding that what you send out comes back. And now Collier adds the dimension of volume and flow, the understanding that between sending and receiving there is a mechanism that must be maintained, a valve that must be kept open, a consciousness that must remain clear of the debris that blocks the channel. Each teacher sees the same truth from a different angle, emphasizes a different aspect of the same reality, provides a different tool for the same work. You don't choose between them, you integrate them. You use Wattles to design, Shinn to understand reciprocity, and Collier to maintain flow. The student who studies only Wattles may become a brilliant visionary with nothing to show for it, a designer of beautiful blueprints that never become buildings. The student who studies only Shinn may understand perfectly that what she sends out returns, but not understand how to increase the volume of the return, how to move from trickle to flood. But the student who studies all three, who learns to design from Wattles, to understand reciprocity from Shinn, and to maintain flow from Collier, this student has the complete system. This student can think the right thoughts, send out the right energy, and receive the full volume of return because the valve is open, the channel is clear, the pipeline is maintained. This is integration, not collection. This is synthesis, not accumulation. Each teacher provides what the others don't, and together they form a complete map of the territory between thought and manifestation. Collier himself acknowledges his debt to those who came before, understanding that he is not contradicting previous teachers, but completing them. He doesn't say Wattles is wrong, he says Wattles is insufficient if you don't also understand the receiving mechanism. He doesn't dismiss the power of positive thinking. He refines it by explaining that positive thinking must be coupled with positive feeling, with the emotional sensation of abundance, with the consciousness of plenty that keeps the valve open. His genius is not in discovering something entirely new, but in identifying the missing piece that makes the entire system work, the plumbing that connects the infinite reservoir to your finite experience, the valve mechanism that translates infinite potential into practical abundance. So if you've been studying Wattles and wondering why your results are inconsistent or incomplete, Collier has your answer. Check the valve. If you've been following Shinn's laws and seeing returns but not the volume you expected, Collier has your solution. Open the flow. If you've been doing all the mental work, all the visualization, all the affirmation, but still experiencing lack, Collier has your diagnosis. The pipes are blocked. And the beautiful thing about this diagnosis is that it gives you something concrete to do, something specific to address. You can't fix a vague problem, but you can open a closed valve. You can't repair a mystery malfunction, but you can clear a blocked channel. Collier takes the mystery out of manifestation and replaces it with mechanics, takes the luck out of prosperity and replaces it with law, takes the chance out of abundance and replaces it with system. The synthesis is this: Wattles builds the house, Shin explains the weather patterns, and Collier installs the plumbing. You need all three. You need to know what you're building. You need to understand the environment you're building in. And you need to know how to hook up the systems that make the building livable. A house without plumbing is a shell. A house with plumbing but no design is chaos. A house with design and plumbing but no understanding of how weather works might flood or freeze. But a house built with all three considerations, informed by all three teachers, is a dwelling place, a home, a structure that works in all weather, serves all purposes, and delivers all the comfort and abundance that was intended in the original design. This is what you're building. Not just a mental castle in the sky, but a functional structure that channels infinite supply into daily experience, that translates universal abundance into personal prosperity, that makes the promises of the masters not just inspiring ideas but lived realities. Wattles is the architect, Collier is the plumber. You are the builder who must use both sets of plans if you want to live in the house you're constructing. Don't neglect either. Don't assume that understanding substance makes plumbing unnecessary. Don't imagine that opening valves means you don't need a design. Master both. Integrate both. Apply both. And then watch as the house of your life becomes not just beautifully designed but fully functional, not just theoretically possible but practically inhabited, not just a vision of what could be but a reality of what is. We talked about the Boomerang Law with Florence Scovel Shinn, that elegant principle that whatever you send out returns to you with unerring accuracy. Send out love, receive love. Send out generosity, receive abundance. Send out fear, receive chaos. The boomerang is a perfect metaphor for a certain level of understanding. It captures the reciprocal nature of the universe, the way your output determines your input, the justice and precision of the return. But Collier adds a dimension that transforms the boomerang into something more powerful, more comprehensive, more practically useful. He adds the dimension of volume. And this addition is not a minor refinement. It is a quantum leap in understanding how supply actually works in your life, how the flow operates, how you can move from comfortable sufficiency to overwhelming abundance. A boomerang brings back what you throw. This is true and important. If you throw a small boomerang, you get back a small boomerang. If you throw a large boomerang, you get back a large boomerang. The size of the return matches the size of the sending. Shin teaches this beautifully, helping you understand that you are always reaping what you sow, always receiving an echo of what you transmit, always living in the world you create through your words and thoughts and deeds. This is the law of reciprocity, and it is foundational. But it operates at the level of what you can throw. You are limited by your arm strength, your capacity to send, your ability to launch. You can throw harder, throw better, throw more accurately, but you are still limited by your own effort, your own energy, your own capacity to generate outflow. An open valve releases more than you can throw. An open valve releases the flood tides of fortune. This is the difference Collier introduces, and it changes everything. You are no longer dependent on your personal capacity to send. You are no longer limited by how much you can generate through your own effort. An open valve taps into a source beyond your personal resources, beyond your individual strength, beyond your finite capacity. It connects you to the infinite reservoir of universal supply, and what flows through an open valve is not proportional to what you can throw. It is proportional to the size of the valve opening and the pressure behind it. Open the valve fully, and you don't get back a little more than you sent. You get back a deluge, a torrent, a flood that has nothing to do with your personal effort and everything to do with the infinite source you've connected to. This is the difference between earning a wage and generating wealth, Collier teaches. A wage is a boomerang. You trade your time and effort for money, and you receive in proportion to what you send. Work an hour, receive an hour's pay. Work harder, receive a bit more. This is the reciprocal economy of personal effort, and there is nothing wrong with it as far as it goes. But it has a ceiling. You have only so many hours, only so much energy, only so much capacity to work. Your income under the wage model is capped by your personal limitations. No matter how hard you throw that boomerang, you can only throw it so far, receive back only so much. This is why wage earners stay wage earners, why people who work very hard sometimes see only modest results, why effort alone is not enough to create the kind of abundance the masters teach about. Wealth, in contrast, is flow. Wealth is what happens when you open a valve to a source larger than yourself. Wealth is generated not by how much you can personally produce, but by how much you can allow to flow through you. The wealthy understand this intuitively, even if they don't articulate it metaphysically. They build systems that channel value through their lives. They create businesses that tap into demand greater than they could personally serve. They invest in assets that generate returns while they sleep. They have opened valves, sometimes multiple valves, and the flow through those valves creates abundance that has nothing to do with how many hours they personally work, how hard they personally try, how much they personally produce. They have moved from the boomerang economy to the valve economy, from reciprocity based on personal effort to flow based on universal supply. The question then becomes, how do you make this transition? How do you move from throwing boomerangs to opening valves? This is where Collier's teaching becomes intensely practical. The shift is not primarily about changing what you do externally, though that may follow. The shift is about changing your consciousness of supply, your relationship with abundance, your understanding of where prosperity comes from. As long as you believe that your income depends solely on your personal effort, you are in the boomerang economy. You will work hard and receive back in proportion to your work, and you will hit the ceiling of your personal capacity. But when you begin to understand that you are a channel for infinite supply, that you are connected to a source that wants to flow through you, that your income can come from the universal mind through channels you don't even see yet, then you begin to open the valve. This consciousness shift is everything. It is the difference between feeling that you must struggle for every dollar and knowing that abundance flows easily when you allow it. It is the difference between clutching and controlling, between forcing and allowing, between the exhausting effort of throwing boomerangs all day and the intelligent positioning of opening a valve and letting the pressure do the work. Collier insists that most people are exhausted, not because they don't work hard enough, but because they work hard in the wrong way, in the boomerang way, always dependent on their personal effort to generate every bit of return. They never discover the valve, never learn to position themselves as channels, never understand that the universe wants to flow through them with far more abundance than they could ever generate through personal effort alone. Consider the implications for how you structure your life and work. If you understand only the boomerang principle, you focus on increasing your output, working longer hours, developing more skills, trying harder, pushing more. All of this is fine, but it has limits. If you understand the valve principle, you focus on something different. You focus on opening yourself to flow, on removing the blockages in your consciousness, on positioning yourself where the current is strong, on becoming a clear channel through which supply wants to move. You don't abandon effort. Effort is still necessary. But your effort is redirected from straining at the boomerang to maintaining the valve, from trying to throw harder to learning to allow more, from generating through struggle to channeling through consciousness. The most successful people intuitively do both. They understand reciprocity. They know that what they give returns to them. But they also understand flow. They know that by positioning themselves correctly, by maintaining the right consciousness, by keeping their internal valve open, they can receive abundance out of proportion to their personal effort. They work hard, yes, but their hard work is leveraged by flow. They give generously, yes, but what returns to them is not just the boomerang of their giving, but the flood of universal supply that flows through a consciousness of abundance. They have learned to combine Shin's boomerang with Collier's valve, reciprocity with flow, sending with receiving, effort with allowing. And the results are exponentially greater than either principle alone could produce. This is why Collier's teaching is so crucial for anyone who has been faithfully applying the law of attraction, visualizing, affirming, working the principles, but still seeing only modest results. You may have mastered the boomerang. You may be sending out excellent energy and receiving appropriate returns, but if you haven't opened the valve, if your consciousness is still limited to believing that what you receive must be proportional to what you personally generate, then you are operating in a closed system, a finite game, a ceiling-bound economy. Open the valve, shift your consciousness to understand that you are a channel for infinite supply, and suddenly the ceiling disappears. The returns are no longer limited to your personal capacity. The flow is no longer capped by your individual effort. You have moved from boomerang to valve, from reciprocity to flow, from limitation to infinitude. The synthesis of Shin and Collier gives you both sides of the prosperity equation. From Shin you learn to send well, to speak words of abundance, to give generously, to bless rather than curse, to transmit positive energy that will return to you as positive experience. From Collier, you learn to receive well, to maintain the valve, to clear the channel, to keep your consciousness open to the infinite supply that wants to flow through you. Send well and receive well, and you have the complete system. Master the boomerang and open the valve, and you have both sides of the circuit. Understand reciprocity and embrace flow, and you become a conduit for abundance that staggers your previous imagination of what is possible. So yes, the boomerang returns what you throw. Work with that principle. Send out the energy you want to receive. But don't stop there. Open the valve. Connect to the infinite source. Position yourself to receive flow that has nothing to do with your personal capacity and everything to do with universal supply-seeking expression through a clear channel. This is how you move from wage to wealth, from sufficiency to abundance, from getting by to thriving, from the exhausting struggle of personal effort to the exhilarating experience of channeling infinite supply. The boomerang is good. The valve is transformative. Together they are complete. What turns the valve? This is the practical question, the mechanical detail, the operational instruction that separates theory from application. You can understand that the valve exists, grasp that supply is infinite, accept that you are a channel. But if you don't know how to turn the wheel, how to operate the mechanism, how to actually open the valve, then all that understanding remains academic, theoretical, frustratingly useless. Collier does not leave you with metaphors and mysteries. He gives you the handle. He shows you exactly what force turns the valve, what action opens the channel, what shift in consciousness releases the flow. And the answer is both simple and profound. What turns the valve is the sensation of plenty, the feeling that you already have more than enough, the consciousness of abundance that pervades your entire being, even before the evidence appears in your bank account. You must cultivate the feeling that you already have more than enough. Not the thought. Many people think about abundance while feeling scarcity. Not the hope. Many people hope for abundance while expecting lack. Not the wish. Many people wish for prosperity while believing in limitation. The feeling, the sensation, the lived experience in your consciousness of already possessing plenty. This is what turns the valve, Collier insists, because the valve responds not to your words or your wishes, but to your actual state of being, your emotional reality, your genuine feeling about supply. The valve is turned by consciousness, and consciousness is not primarily what you think, but what you feel. Not primarily what you say, but what you are. Not primarily what you hope for, but what you already experience internally. Consider the mechanics of this carefully. When you feel lack, when the sensation of not enough pervades your consciousness, the valve closes. It must close. It closes automatically, hydraulically, as a natural consequence of the feeling state. Why? Because the feeling of lack is a message to the mechanism. Close down, protect, conserve, restrict flow. The consciousness of scarcity is like a signal sent to the valve. Emergency mode, survival only, no flow. You cannot feel lack and have an open valve simultaneously. It is mechanically impossible, like trying to accelerate and brake at the same moment. The feeling state determines the valve position, and the feeling of scarcity positions the valve in the closed configuration. This is not punishment. This is not the universe withholding from you. This is simple mechanics. Your consciousness is the valve, and your feeling state determines whether it is open or closed. When you spend money, do not clench your fist. This instruction is so practical, so specific, so immediately applicable that most people skip over it without recognizing its power. Collier is teaching you to use every transaction as a valve maintenance exercise, every act of spending as an opportunity to practice the consciousness of plenty. When you spend, when you pay a bill, buy groceries, make any financial transaction, the default reaction for most people is a subtle or obvious sense of loss, a feeling of the resource diminishing, a clenching, a contracting, a fear-based grip on what remains. This is the fist-clenching Collier warns against, and every time you clench your fist, you turn the valve a notch toward closed. Every time you spend with fear, you send a signal to the mechanism: scarcity, not enough, close down. Spend it with the feeling that there is an ocean behind it. This is the instruction, the technique, the practical method. When you hand over money, whether $5 or $5,000, do so with the conscious awareness that this amount is not coming from a finite pile that diminishes with each transaction. Feel it coming from an infinite source, an inexhaustible ocean, a reservoir that is not depleted by your use, but is instead replenished by the very act of flow. Cultivate the sensation that behind this payment, behind this purchase, behind this transaction, there is an ocean of supply waiting to flow through the channel. You are not spending from a limited pot. You are channeling from an infinite source. And the more you channel, the more can flow, because flow increases capacity, and an open valve draws more than a closed one. Fear tightens the valve. This is the enemy, the obstruction, the blockage that stops the flow more effectively than any external circumstance. Fear of not having enough, fear of running out, fear of financial disaster, fear of poverty, fear of lack. Every fear-based thought sends a signal to close the valve, to restrict the flow, to shut down the channel. And the tragic irony is that fear of lack creates lack, not because the universe is punishing you for your fear, but because fear closes the valve through which abundance could flow. You create the very thing you fear not through some mystical law of attraction, but through the simple mechanical fact that fear closes valves and closed valves stop flow. Most people are living in self-created scarcity, not because they are cursed or unlucky, but because their fear of scarcity keeps their valve permanently closed. Confidence opens it. This is the solution, the answer, the key that turns the wheel. Not arrogance. Arrogance is actually another form of fear, a compensation for inner doubt. Not presumption. Presumption is demanding without relationship to source. But confidence, the quiet, certain knowledge that you are connected to infinite supply, that the ocean is real, that the valve can be opened, that abundance is your natural state. This confidence is not based on your bank balance. It is based on your understanding of the mechanism. You are confident not because you can see evidence of abundance yet, but because you understand how supply works. You know you are connected to it. You trust that the valve responds to consciousness, and you are cultivating the consciousness that opens rather than closes, that allows rather than restricts, that receives rather than blocks. This confidence must be practiced, cultivated, maintained as a discipline. You don't wait until you feel confident to start operating the valve. You practice the consciousness of plenty, even when the evidence is not yet visible. Especially when the evidence is not yet visible, because the consciousness must precede the manifestation, the feeling must precede the form, the internal state must precede the external condition. This is the hard part for most people, the place where the teaching seems to ask too much. You want me to feel abundant before I have evidence of abundance. You want me to spend confidently when my account is limited. You want me to turn the valve before I see water? Yes, absolutely yes. Because that is how the mechanism works. The valve opens from the inside, by consciousness, before the flow becomes visible. This requires faith, but it is not blind faith. It is faith based on understanding the system, trusting the mechanics, knowing that cause precedes effect, and consciousness precedes manifestation. Every time you practice spending with the consciousness of plenty, you train the valve to stay open. Every time you pay a bill with gratitude rather than resentment, you maintain the channel. Every time you make a purchase with confidence rather than fear, you signal to the mechanism, open, flow. More can come because I know there is more. This is not about being irresponsible or reckless with money. This is about the consciousness you bring to every financial transaction, the feeling state you maintain regardless of the numbers. You can spend $5 or $5,000. What matters is not the amount, but the consciousness. Not the number, but the feeling. Not the transaction, but the state of being you bring to the transaction. The cultivation of this feeling is your daily work, your ongoing practice, your primary responsibility in the operation of the valve. You are not trying to make money appear through effort. You are not trying to force abundance through struggle. You are cultivating the consciousness that allows abundance to flow, maintaining the valve in the open position through the disciplined practice of feeling plenty even before the evidence multiplies. And as you maintain this practice, as you strengthen this consciousness, as you develop this feeling into a stable state rather than an occasional mood, the valve remains open more consistently, the flow increases in volume, and the abundance that was always waiting to enter your life finally has a clear channel through which to come. The universe flows where it is used. This principle, stated so simply by Collier, contains a profound insight into the nature of supply and the conditions that attract or repel it. Water does not flow into a capped pipe. This is obvious to anyone who understands basic plumbing. No matter how much pressure builds behind the cap, no matter how infinite the source, if the outlet is sealed, flow is impossible. But Collier extends this physical principle into the realm of consciousness and money. The universe observes where value is circulated, where resources are employed, where abundance is actively used rather than passively hoarded. And to that place, to that person, to that channel where use is evident, the universe directs more flow. Not as a reward for good behavior, but as a natural consequence of the way the system works. The way supply seeks channels that channel rather than channels that clog. To keep the valve open, you must have a use for the money. This is practical instruction that contradicts the fear-based wisdom most people operate under. The conventional approach is to get the money first and then decide what to do with it. Collier reverses this. Have a use first, and the money flows to fulfill that use. Why? Because having a use creates a vacuum, a pull, a demand that the supply responds to. If you have nowhere for the money to go, no employment for it, no purpose for it, then what is the point of it flowing to you? The universe, Collier teaches, is intensely practical. It does not send resources where they will sit idle. It sends resources where they will be used, circulated, employed in the creation of more value, more expression, more life. Having a clear use for abundance creates the very channel through which abundance can flow. You must circulate it. This is the second half of the instruction, and it is where most people fail even after they begin to receive. They open the valve enough to let some supply through, but then they grip it, hold it, store it away in fear that more might not come. And in that very act of fearful hoarding, they close the valve. The flow stops not because the source dried up, but because the channel clogged. Money is like water in this respect. It must flow to stay fresh. Stagnant water becomes toxic. Hoarded money becomes a blockage, not because there is something wrong with saving or investing. Those are forms of circulation, ways of putting money to use. But hoarding out of fear, gripping out of scarcity consciousness, refusing to let it circulate because you're terrified it won't be replaced, these behaviors close the valve as surely as rust closes a pipe. Collier teaches that holding on to money out of fear stops the flow. This is one of the great paradoxes that trips up people who are just beginning to experience increased supply. They follow the principles, open the valve a bit, start seeing more money come in. And then fear takes over. I better hold on to this, I better not spend any of it. I better hoard every penny because this might not last. And with that fear-based decision, the valve closes. The flow that was just beginning stops. The person interprets this as evidence that their fear was justified. See, I knew it wouldn't last. When in fact their fear created the stoppage. The supply didn't dry up. The valve closed. The source didn't change. The consciousness changed. And because consciousness controls the valve, a shift from confidence to fear is a shift from open to closed, from flow to stoppage, from abundance to lack. Keeping the money moving keeps the pressure gradient high, drawing in more. This is the positive side of the same principle. When you circulate money wisely, When you spend it, invest it, give it, use it to create value, you create a pressure gradient. Think of it hydraulically. If water flows out of a pipe, it creates a low-pressure area at the outlet, which draws more water from the high-pressure source. The outflow creates the inflow. Similarly, when you circulate money with confidence and purpose, you create space for more to flow in. The universe sees an active channel, a productive use, a place where resources are being employed rather than stored, and it directs more flow to that channel. This is not mystical. This is the natural behavior of any system where supply seeks the path of least resistance and greatest utility. The key is to circulate with consciousness, not with recklessness. This is not permission to spend foolishly or to waste resources out of some misguided belief that throwing money around will bring more back. The circulation must be purposeful, conscious, aligned with your values and goals. Spend on things that genuinely support your life and growth. Invest in assets that generate return. Give to causes you believe in. Use money to create more value, more beauty, more service. This kind of circulation is what keeps the valve open, because it demonstrates to the universe, and more importantly, to your own subconscious mind, that you are a responsible steward, a productive channel, a place where resources can flow without being wasted or hoarded or misused. Consider the difference between two people who each receive an unexpected $1,000. The first person, operating from scarcity consciousness, immediately hides the money away, afraid to touch it, terrified that if they spend any of it, no more will come. They grip it tightly, and in that grip they close their valve. The second person, operating from abundance consciousness, sees the $1,000 as evidence that the valve is opening, that flow is beginning. They allocate it wisely, perhaps investing some, spending some on necessary items, giving some away. And they do so with the feeling that this is not the last $1,000 they will ever see, but the first wave of a flow that can increase as long as they maintain the open channel. Which person will receive more? The universe, Collier teaches, will send more to the second person, not because they deserve it more, but because they are demonstrating an open channel, a productive use, a consciousness that allows rather than blocks. This principle applies at every level of supply, not just money. The universe flows creative ideas to those who use the ideas they already have. It flows opportunities to those who act on the opportunities already presented. It flows relationships to those who nurture the relationships they already possess. In every area of life, the law is the same. What you use multiplies. What you hoard diminishes. What you circulate increases. What you clamp down on decreases. What you employ with confidence attracts more. What you grip with fear repels more. The valve opens to use and closes to hoarding, opens to circulation and closes to stagnation, opens to confident employment and closes to fearful storage. So examine your relationship with money and all forms of supply. Are you circulating or hoarding? Are you using with confidence or gripping with fear? Are you employing resources to create value or storing them against disaster? Your honest answer to these questions will tell you the position of your valve. If you are hoarding, you have work to do. Not to become reckless, but to cultivate confidence, to develop a consciousness of plenty so deep that you can circulate wisely without fear, knowing that circulation creates flow and flow creates abundance. If you are already circulating, strengthen that practice, deepen that consciousness, maintain that discipline. The more consistently you demonstrate to yourself and the universe that you are an open channel, a productive user, a confident circulator, the more consistently the supply will flow to you, through you, and ultimately create abundance beyond what you could generate through personal effort alone. Collier was famous for saying, "See things as you would have them be." This instruction has been repeated by countless teachers since, quoted in seminars and books, written on vision boards and affirmation cards. But most people who repeat it don't understand the full depth of what Collier meant, don't grasp the specific application he intended, don't realize that this is not generic positive thinking, but precise valve operation. When Collier tells you to see things as you would have them be, he is not suggesting you ignore reality or engage in wishful thinking. He is teaching you to use imagination as the mechanism that opens the valve, to employ visualization as the force that clears the channel, to harness the power of mental imagery as the practical means of positioning your consciousness to receive flow. You must visualize the pipe already full, not filling full, not starting to receive, already receiving, not hoping for flow, experiencing flow. This distinction is critical. Many people visualize their desire while simultaneously visualizing the current lack, creating a mixed signal that keeps the valve in a neutral or partially closed position. They imagine receiving money while also imagining their empty bank account. They visualize abundance while also visualizing their bills. They see the desired outcome while simultaneously seeing all the obstacles between here and there. This dual visualization is valve confusion. The mechanism doesn't know whether to open or close, so it defaults to the safer position, closed. Collier's instruction cuts through this confusion. Visualize completion, not process. See the end result, not the journey. Imagine the pipe full, not gradually filling. Do not visualize the trickle. Visualize the burst. This is where most visualization practice goes wrong, where most people limit their own results through timid imagination. They visualize receiving a little more money, a slight improvement in circumstances, a modest increase in flow. And this timid visualization produces exactly what it imagines: a trickle. The valve opens just enough to allow a small stream, and the person thinks, well, visualization works a little bit, never realizing that their limitation was not in the method, but in the application, not in the power of the technique, but in the timidity of the image. Collier urges boldness in imagination. See the burst, not the trickle. See the flood, not the stream. See supply overwhelming your current situation, abundance so great that all your problems become insignificant by comparison. See the supply overwhelming your problems. This is the key to powerful visualization, the element that makes it practically effective rather than merely mentally pleasant. Most people visualize their desired outcome in isolation, imagining the money or health or success without reference to their current challenges. But Collier teaches a more powerful approach. Visualize the supply in direct relationship to your problems. See the abundance overwhelming the lack. Imagine the flow washing away the obstacles. If you have debt, don't just visualize having money. Visualize having so much money that the debt becomes trivial, insignificant, easily handled. If you have health challenges, don't just visualize being healthy. Visualize such vibrant vitality that your current symptoms are completely overwhelmed and dissolved. This kind of visualization creates a powerful mental image that turns the valve forcefully, that signals to your subconscious mind and the universal mind that you are ready for flood-level flow, not trickle-level improvement. This mental image creates the vacuum that sucks the supply in. Now we get to the mechanics. The reason why this visualization technique actually works rather than being merely hopeful imagination. When you create a clear, powerful mental image of abundance, when you see in your mind's eye the pipe already full, the flow already abundant, the supply already overwhelming your problems, you create what might be called a psychological vacuum, a space between your current reality and your imagined reality. And nature, including human nature and universal nature, abhors a vacuum. The universe rushes to fill empty space. The greater the vacuum, the stronger the suction, the faster the flow. Your powerful visualization creates such intense desire, such clear intention, such definite mental form that it generates suction, pull, vacuum, and the supply flows toward that vacuum, drawn by the same force that draws water into any low-pressure area. But the visualization must be done correctly, Collier insists. It is not daydreaming. It is not casual fantasy. It is not occasional wishful thinking. It is deliberate, repeated, emotionally charged mental practice. You must see the image with clarity, sharp details, vivid colors, specific circumstances. You must see it with feeling, not just looking at the picture, but experiencing the emotions of already having the abundance, already living in the overflow, already experiencing the flood. You must see it with regularity, not once and then forget it, but daily, repeatedly, until the image becomes so familiar to your mind that it begins to feel more real than your current circumstances. This kind of visualization is work, mental discipline, conscious practice. But it is the work that turns the valve, the discipline that opens the channel, the practice that positions your consciousness to receive. Consider what happens in your consciousness when you practice this kind of visualization consistently. Your habitual thoughts about money and supply begin to shift. Where you once automatically thought in terms of limitation, you begin to automatically think in terms of abundance. Where you once felt anxiety about resources, you begin to feel confidence about supply. Where you once imagined scarcity as your natural state, you begin to imagine abundance as your natural state. These shifts in habitual thought and feeling are not superficial. They are the actual turning of the valve, the real opening of the channel. The visualization is not magic that produces results through supernatural intervention. The visualization is the practical method for changing your consciousness, and your consciousness is the valve that controls the flow. The image must be repeated until it becomes more real than current circumstances. This is perhaps the hardest part of the practice for most people, because current circumstances are tangible, visible, constantly reinforced by sensory evidence. Your bank balance is a number you can see. Your bills are papers you can touch. Your limitations are experiences you live with daily. How do you make an imagined future more real than this present reality? Through the disciplined practice of attention. You choose where to place your attention, where to focus your mental energy, what to make real in your consciousness. Current circumstances are real to your senses, but your imagined abundance can be more real to your consciousness if you give it more attention, more emotional energy, more mental focus. This is not about denying current circumstances. You must deal with what is, but about refusing to let current circumstances determine your consciousness, your valve position, your receptive capacity. Collier teaches that your imagination is not separate from the creative process. It is the creative process at the level of consciousness. When you imagine clearly and powerfully, you are not just entertaining yourself with pleasant fantasies. You are impressing form on the formless substance. Wattles would agree. You are setting up the return of your mental boomerang. Shin would agree. And you are opening the valve to receive flow, Collier's unique contribution. All three things happen simultaneously when visualization is done correctly. You create the form, you set the direction of return, and you open the channel. This is why Collier places such emphasis on seeing things as you would have them be. Because that seeing is not passive observation, but active creation. Not wishful thinking, but practical mechanics. Not hopeful fantasy, but valve operation. The student who grasps this and applies it consistently will find that circumstances begin to shift in ways that seem miraculous, but are actually lawful. Opportunities appear that weren't visible before, not because they didn't exist, but because the open valve makes you receptive to seeing them. Money comes from unexpected sources, not because the universe is doing you favors, but because the open channel allows flow from multiple directions that were blocked before. Problems that seemed insurmountable become manageable, not because the problems changed, but because the increased flow gives you resources to address them. This is the power of visualization done Collier's way. Not as hopeful thinking that might work if you're lucky, but as precise valve operation that must work when done correctly, because it is working with law, with system, with the mechanics of consciousness and manifestation. So begin today. Set aside time for deliberate visualization. See the pipe full, not filling. See the burst, not the trickle. See supply overwhelming your problems. See it with clarity, with feeling, with regularity. And as you practice this, pay attention to what happens in your consciousness, in your emotional state, in your automatic thoughts about money and supply. You are turning the valve. You are opening the channel. You are creating the vacuum that will draw the supply. This is not magic. This is mechanics. And when you work with the mechanics correctly, consistently, persistently, the flow must come. Not because you deserve it or because the universe likes you, but because open valves receive flow. It is law. You must approach the supply with the confidence of a son, not a beggar. This single sentence from Collier contains a revolution in consciousness, a complete reframing of your relationship to abundance, a transformation of identity that changes everything about how you operate the valve. A beggar approaches supply from outside as a stranger, as one who has no claim, no right, no relationship. A beggar hopes for charity, prays for mercy, is grateful for scraps. Today, beggar's entire consciousness is one of separation from supply, of unworthiness to receive, of dependence on the whim of others. And this consciousness, the beggar consciousness, keeps the valve firmly closed, no matter how much you visualize or affirm or try to apply the principles. You cannot maintain beggar consciousness and open the valve simultaneously. The two are incompatible. A beggar hopes for a drop. The very posture of begging is one of expecting little and being grateful for anything. There is nothing wrong with gratitude. Gratitude is essential. But there is everything wrong with the expectation of scarcity, the assumption that you must beg for what should be freely available, the belief that you have no right to abundance and must somehow convince a reluctant universe to give you a few crumbs. This is not humility. This is misunderstanding of your relationship to supply. And this misunderstanding produces exactly what it expects: drops instead of floods, trickles instead of torrents, barely enough instead of overwhelming abundance. The beggar consciousness creates beggar results, not because the universe is stingy, but because the beggar consciousness keeps the valve in a mostly closed position, allowing only the minimal flow that the consciousness can accept. A son opens the fridge. This is the counter-image, the alternative consciousness, the identity shift that changes the valve position from closed to open. A son does not beg. A son does not grovel. A son does not approach the supply as an outsider hoping for charity. A son walks to the refrigerator, opens the door and takes what he needs with the complete confidence that it belongs to him, that it is there for his use, that he has every right to it. Not because he earned it through his own effort. A child has not earned the food in the refrigerator. Not because he deserves it through his good behavior, though good behavior is expected, but because he is a son, because he is part of the family, because the provision of the household extends to him by right of relationship, not by merit of achievement. Adopt the attitude of divine right. This is the instruction, the consciousness shift, the identity transformation that Collier teaches as the key to fully opening the valve. Divine right means understanding that you are not a beggar approaching a reluctant universe. You are a son or daughter of the infinite, an heir to all that the universal mind possesses, a rightful inheritor of abundance. This is not arrogance. This is not entitlement in the negative sense. This is accurate understanding of your relationship to the source of all supply. You are not separate from the universal mind. You are an expression of it. You are not disconnected from infinite abundance. You are a channel for it. You are not an outsider hoping for admission. You are family with all the rights and access that family members have. It is your Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom. Collier draws on this biblical language not to make his teaching religious, but to use the most powerful metaphor available for the relationship between the individual and the infinite. A good father delights in providing for his children. A father does not grudgingly dispense the minimum necessary for survival. A father joyfully gives abundance, takes pleasure in seeing his children thrive, wants them to have access to all that he possesses. This is the relationship between you and the universal mind, Collier teaches. The universe is not a miser hoarding resources and forcing you to beg for scraps. The universe is a generous father whose nature is to give, whose pleasure is to provide, whose will is to see you flourish in abundance. Your lack is not because the Father is withholding. Your lack is because you are approaching as a beggar when you should be approaching as a son. Turn the valve with authority. This is the practical application of the consciousness shift. When you understand yourself as a rightful heir, when you adopt the attitude of divine right, when you know that abundance is your inheritance and not a favor you must beg for, then you approach the valve differently. You don't timidly touch it, hoping it might move. You don't anxiously plead with it, wishing it would open. You grasp it with confidence and turn it with authority, knowing that you have every right to open it, that the supply behind it belongs to you, that the flow is meant for you. This authority is not about dominating or forcing. It is about claiming what is already yours, accessing what is already available. receiving what is already pressing against the valve, waiting for you to turn the wheel. Most people never develop this consciousness of divine right because they have been taught the opposite. Religion often teaches unworthiness. Culture teaches scarcity and competition. Personal history teaches limitation based on past results. All of these influences combine to create a deeply ingrained beggar consciousness, a sense that you must somehow earn or deserve or prove yourself worthy of abundance before it can be yours. And this consciousness, no matter how sincerely held or culturally reinforced, keeps the valve closed. It must keep the valve closed because a beggar consciousness is by definition a consciousness of separation from supply, and separation from supply is the valve closed position. The shift from beggar to son is not accomplished through effort or achievement. You cannot earn sonship through good behavior. You cannot deserve it through spiritual practice. You cannot prove yourself worthy of it through demonstration. Sonship is a matter of identity, of understanding, of recognition. You are already a son or daughter of the infinite. You already have divine right to abundance. You already are connected to unlimited supply. These are not conditions to be achieved. They are truths to be recognized, facts to be accepted, realities to be lived from. The moment you recognize your true relationship to supply, the moment you shift from beggar consciousness to son consciousness, the valve begins to turn. And the more deeply you anchor yourself in this identity, the more fully the valve opens. This is why Collier emphasizes confidence so strongly. Confidence is not an emotion you manufacture through positive thinking. Confidence is the natural state that emerges when you understand your true relationship to supply. When you know you are a son, when you recognize your divine right, when you understand that the Father's pleasure is to give you the kingdom, confidence is automatic. You don't have to pump yourself up or convince yourself to feel confident. You simply are confident because you know who you are, you know what you have access to. You know that the supply is yours by right and not by favor. This is the confidence that turns the valve fully, that maintains the channel permanently open, that allows the flood level flow that Collier promises. So examine your consciousness today. When you think about money, abundance, supply, do you think as a beggar or as a son? When you approach the question of provision, do you hope for drops or expect the kingdom? When you visualize abundance, do you imagine yourself fortunate to receive a bit more, or do you imagine yourself accessing what is already yours? Your honest answer reveals your valve position. And if you discover that you have been operating in beggar consciousness, then your work is clear. Shift your identity, change your understanding, recognize your divine right, adopt the consciousness of sonship, and turn the valve with the authority that comes from knowing who you are and what you have rightful access to. This is not spiritual pride. This is accurate knowledge of your relationship to the infinite source of all supply. And when you operate from this knowledge, the valve opens fully and the flow begins. The drought is over. Let this declaration settle into your consciousness with the weight of absolute truth, with the finality of a judge's verdict, with the relief of rain after a long, desperate season of dust. The drought is over not because circumstances have changed, though they will, but because you now understand the mechanism, you now know where the valve is located, you now possess the knowledge that transforms you from victim to operator, from someone at the mercy of external conditions, to someone who controls the flow by the state of their own consciousness. The water is waiting, and it has always been waiting, building pressure behind the closed valve of limited thinking, accumulating in the infinite reservoir of universal supply, ready to rush through the channel the moment you turn the wheel. All you have to do is turn the wheel. Not beg the universe, not convince God, not earn worthiness, not prove deserving. Simply turn the wheel. The wheel is your consciousness. The turning is the shift from lack thinking to plenty thinking, from fear feeling to confidence feeling, from beggar identity to son identity. This is work, yes. It requires discipline, practice, persistence. But it is your work to do, your mechanism to operate, your valve to turn. You are not waiting for permission from anyone or anything. You are not dependent on external circumstances to align before you can have abundance. You are in control of the valve, and therefore you are in control of the flow. This is not arrogance, this is responsibility. This is not presumption, this is understanding. You have been given the handle. Now use it. Robert Collier has shown you where the blockage is, in your own consciousness, in your own thinking, in your own feeling about supply. He has shown you what the blockage consists of: fear, doubt, lack thinking, scarcity consciousness, beggar identity. He has shown you how to remove the blockage, cultivate the sensation of plenty, spend with confidence, circulate with purpose, visualize with power, adopt divine right consciousness. And he has shown you what happens when the blockage is removed. Flow begins, pressure equalizes. The infinite reservoir of supply pours into your life with a force proportional to the opening of the valve. This is the complete teaching, the full method, the practical system that transforms understanding into experience, knowledge into manifestation, theory into reality. The masters all point to the same truth from different angles. Wattles showed you the formless substance and how to impress thought upon it. Shin showed you the law of reciprocity and how your output determines your input. Now, Collier has shown you the valve mechanism and how your consciousness controls the flow. Each teaching complements the others. Each perspective adds depth to your understanding. Each technique gives you another tool to work with. You don't choose between them. You synthesize them into a complete system. You design your life using Wattles' principles. You understand return using Shin's laws. And you maintain flow using Collier's techniques. Together, they give you everything you need to move from wherever you are now to the abundance that is your birthright. The synthesis is practical, not merely philosophical. You wake up tomorrow and you do this. You spend the day cultivating the feeling of plenty, regardless of what your bank balance shows. You handle every financial transaction with confidence rather than fear, sensing the ocean behind every payment. You visualize your pipe already full, seeing abundance overwhelming your problems. You circulate rather than hoard, knowing that flow creates more flow. You approach the valve with the authority of a son, not the timidity of a beggar. And you do this not once, not as an experiment, but as a daily practice, a consistent discipline, a maintained state of consciousness. This is how you keep the valve open. This is how you sustain the flow. This is how you transform from someone who occasionally experiences abundance to someone who lives in perpetual prosperity. Supply is infinite. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration for motivational effect. This is Collier's fundamental premise, his bedrock principle, his unshakable foundation. Supply is infinite. The universe is not a finite pie where your piece means less for someone else. The universal mind is not a limited reservoir that will eventually run dry. The formless substance that Wattles described does not diminish when you use it. It increases when you use it well. Supply is infinite, and understanding this truth intellectually is the first step. Feeling this truth emotionally is the second step, and living from this truth practically is the transformation that opens the valve fully and permanently. The only limit is your capacity to receive, not the universe's capacity to give. That is unlimited. Not the available supply. That is infinite. Not the pressure behind the valve. That is inexhaustible. The only limit is your capacity to receive, and your capacity to receive is determined entirely by your consciousness, entirely by your feeling state, entirely by your belief about what you can have, what you deserve, what is possible for you. This is simultaneously the most empowering and most challenging truth in Collier's teaching. Empowering because it means you are not limited by external conditions, not restricted by circumstances, not capped by the finite resources visible in the physical world. Challenging because it means you cannot blame anyone or anything for your limitation. Your capacity to receive is entirely your responsibility, entirely within your control, entirely determined by the valve position you maintain through your daily consciousness. How do you increase your capacity to receive? By expanding your consciousness of what is possible, by deepening your feeling of worthiness, by strengthening your identity as a rightful heir to infinite supply. Every time you practice the visualization of abundance, you stretch your capacity. Every time you spend with confidence rather than fear, you enlarge your capacity. Every time you circulate rather than hoard, you increase your capacity. Every time you adopt the consciousness of divine right rather than beggar mentality, you expand your capacity. This is the work, not to create supply which already exists, but to increase your capacity to receive supply, to widen the valve opening, to enlarge the channel, to expand the consciousness that determines how much flow you can allow into your experience. Collier's secret is that you are the limiting factor, not the universe. Most people spend their lives trying to change external circumstances, believing that if only conditions were different, they could have abundance. If only the economy were better. If only they had a better job. If only they had received a better education. If only they had been born in different circumstances. All of this is looking in the wrong direction, Collier insists. The limitation is not out there. The limitation is in here, in your consciousness, in your capacity to receive. And this is actually fantastic news, because you cannot control the economy or rewrite your past, but you absolutely can change your consciousness. You can expand your capacity. You can turn your valve. This is within your power, within your control, within your immediate capability. The master's secret, distilled to its essence, is this: stop trying to change the supply. The supply is fine. The supply is infinite. The supply is pressing against your valve right now with more force than you can imagine. Start changing your capacity to receive the supply. Work on your consciousness. Cultivate the feeling of plenty. Practice confidence in every transaction. Visualize flood-level abundance. Adopt sun identity rather than beggar identity. Maintain these practices daily, consistently, persistently, and watch as your external circumstances begin to reflect your expanded internal capacity. The changes come from the inside out, from consciousness to manifestation, from valve position to flow volume. You cannot do it backwards. You cannot force external change and hope it changes your consciousness. You must change consciousness first, and the external change follows as certainly as water follows gravity. Consider what your life will look like when you fully embody this teaching. You wake up with the unshakable knowledge that you are connected to infinite supply. You move through your day with confidence, knowing that the valve is open and flow is coming. You handle every financial transaction with the consciousness of plenty, feeling the ocean behind every payment. You see opportunities where others see obstacles, because your open valve makes you receptive to the flow that others miss. You experience synchronicities and coincidences with increasing frequency, not because you're lucky, but because you're positioned to receive the flow that is always present, but only visible to those whose valves are open. You find that money comes from multiple sources, often unexpected, not because the universe is performing miracles for you, but because you are finally allowing the natural flow that was always trying to reach you. This is not fantasy. This is the reported experience of everyone who has truly mastered Collier's teaching, who has maintained the practices consistently, who has shifted their consciousness from limitation to abundance, who has turned their valve from closed to open. The external results vary in form. One person experiences it as business success, another as investment returns, another as unexpected gifts, another as career advancement. But the internal experience is the same. A shift from striving to allowing, from anxiety to confidence, from scarcity to plenty, from closed to open. And once that shift is made and stabilized, once the valve is fully open and maintained open, the flow becomes your normal experience, abundance becomes your natural state, and you wonder how you ever believed that lack was real. Collier's promise is not wealth without effort. It is not money falling from the sky for no reason. It is not abundance without purpose or direction. His promise is that when you understand the mechanism, operate it correctly, and maintain it consistently, you will experience flow proportional to your valve opening, supply proportional to your capacity to receive, abundance proportional to your consciousness of plenty. And because the source is infinite, there is no limit to how far this can go except the limit you place on it through your own consciousness. Open the valve a crack, receive a stream. Open it halfway, receive a river. Open it fully, receive a flood. The choice, the control, the responsibility, all of these are yours. Grab the handle, not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when you have more faith or more evidence or more preparation, Grab the handle now. This is not metaphorical instruction. This is literal, immediate, practical direction. The handle is your consciousness, and you have access to it right now, in this moment, regardless of your current circumstances. You can right now choose to shift from fear to confidence. You can right now decide to cultivate the feeling of plenty instead of the feeling of lack. You can right now begin to spend with the consciousness of an ocean behind every payment. You can right now visualize your pipe already full. You can right now adopt the identity of a son rather than a beggar. The handle is in your hand. You have been holding it all along. You just didn't know what it was or how to turn it. Turn it hard, not tentatively, not timidly, not with half-hearted effort or uncertain commitment. Turn it hard. Commit fully to the consciousness shift. Practice the feeling of plenty with consistency and intensity. Circulate money with confidence, not fear. Visualize with power and clarity. Adopt divine right consciousness completely, not partially. Half measures produce half results, and half-open valves produce trickles, not floods. If you want the abundance Collier describes, if you want the flow he promises, if you want to experience supply overwhelming your problems, then you must turn the valve hard, fully, completely. You must commit to the consciousness of abundance with the same totality that you previously committed to the consciousness of lack. Anything less leaves the valve partially closed, and partially closed is still blocked. Are you ready to drown in abundance? This is not a casual question. This is a confrontation with your true desire, your real commitment, your actual readiness. Most people say they want abundance, but when you examine their consciousness, their daily practices, their habitual thoughts and feelings, you discover that they are not truly ready for it. They are comfortable with their level of lack. They have built their identity around struggle. They have become so accustomed to limitation that abundance would actually frighten them, would require them to change in ways they are not sure they are willing to change. So ask yourself honestly, are you ready to drown in abundance? Are you ready for your problems to become insignificant because the supply is so overwhelming? Are you ready for your life to transform so completely that your current concerns seem laughable in retrospect? If yes, then grab the handle and turn it. If not, then don't waste time complaining about lack. You are choosing it. Write in the comments, I open the valve. This is your commitment, your declaration, your public statement of intent. When you write these words, you are not hoping or wishing or trying. You are declaring, you are claiming, you are operating the mechanism, you are turning the wheel. The words themselves matter less than the consciousness behind them, but the act of writing them focuses your intention, crystallizes your commitment, activates your will. This is not superstition or magic. This is practical psychology. When you publicly declare your intention, you engage a deeper level of commitment. When you write the words, you imprint the intention more firmly in your consciousness. When you see others making the same declaration, you strengthen your own resolve. So write it. I open the valve. And as you write it, feel the turning, sense the shift, imagine the flow beginning. Let the river flow. This is the final instruction, the ultimate surrender, the complete allowing. After you have understood the teaching, after you have grasped the mechanism, after you have grabbed the handle and turned it hard, after you have declared your intention and committed to the consciousness shift, then let the river flow. Stop resisting. Stop controlling. Stop trying to micromanage how the supply comes or when it arrives or what form it takes. Let the river flow. Your job is to keep the valve open through maintained consciousness of plenty. The river's job is to flow. Trust the river. Trust the supply. Trust the infinite pressure behind the valve. It wants to flow more than you want to receive it. It is pressing harder than you are pulling. Your only work now is to stay out of the way, to maintain the open consciousness, to keep the channel clear, to let the river flow where it will, how it will, when it will, in whatever volume it will. The transformation begins the moment you turn the valve, not when the money appears, not when the evidence manifests, not when circumstances change. The transformation begins in consciousness, the moment you shift from limitation to abundance, from closed to open, from fear to confidence, from beggar to son. Everything else follows from that shift. The external manifestation is effect, not cause. The consciousness shift is cause, and when cause is established, effect must follow. This is law, not hope. This is mechanics, not magic. This is system, not luck. You are not trying to attract abundance through mysterious means. You are opening a valve to release a flow that is already under pressure, already waiting, already pressing against the mechanism. So here is your choice, stated plainly. You can continue living as you have been, with the valve mostly closed, experiencing trickles and occasional streams, wondering why abundance seems to come to others but not to you, believing that you are a victim of circumstances or luck or cosmic injustice. Or you can grab the handle right now, turn it hard, shift your consciousness from limitation to plenty, maintain that shift through daily practice, and watch as the river begins to flow, first as a stream, then as a torrent, then as a flood that transforms everything. The choice is entirely yours, the valve is entirely under your control, the responsibility is entirely on your shoulders. And the rewards, the overwhelming abundance, the flood-level flow, the prosperity that makes your current concerns seem trivial, these are entirely available to you the moment you truly, fully, completely open the valve. Robert Collier has given you the map. He has shown you the mechanism. He has taught you the techniques. He has removed all mystery and replaced it with method. Now the only question is, will you use it? Will you grab the handle? Will you turn the wheel? Will you shift your consciousness? Will you maintain the practice? Will you keep the valve open? Your answer determines everything. Not your hope, not your wish, not your intention to someday get around to it. Your answer, demonstrated through action, proven through practice, evidenced through maintained consciousness. Answer now. Declare now. Commit now. Turn the valve now, and let the river flow.